Weak men get sad when rejected. Dangerous men get organized. But the rarest men do something colder. They turn rejection into evidence. Because rejection does not reveal your worth. It reveals your current position. It shows what your presence failed to command. It shows what your proof failed to establish. It shows where your identity still depended on being chosen. Most men make the same mistake after rejection. They explain, they chase closure, they write the final message. They try to convince the same person who already judged them. They walk back into the same court where the verdict was already given, hoping that if they bleed honestly enough, the judge will become merciful. That is not strength. That is dependency dressed as sincerity. A Machiavellian man does not negotiate inside another person's court. He does not beg for a second reading of his value. He does not perform pain to people who have already decided his price. He audits, he converts, he builds. This is how rejection becomes ruthless momentum. Not through comfort, not through fantasy, not through pretending you feel nothing, and not through cheap revenge. It becomes momentum when pain is forced into structure, when humiliation is converted into discipline, and when the wound becomes proof so visible that the old judgment becomes useless. Before we go deeper, understand this clearly. This channel is not built for men who want soft motivation. It is built for men who want the machinery beneath human behavior. If you want the deeper, less filtered work on power, perception, masculine discipline, and the darker laws of human nature, join the Patreon. That is where I go further than I can go here, with content built for men who are serious about becoming harder to manipulate and harder to defeat. Now listen carefully. Rejection hurts because it feels personal. It feels like someone looked at you, measured you, and decided you were not necessary, not valuable enough, not desirable enough, not useful enough, not impressive enough. And the average man cannot survive that moment with dignity, because his dignity was never fully his. It was on loan from the approval of others. He needed the answer to be yes so he could feel whole. He needed the woman to choose him so he could feel masculine. He needed the client to accept him so he could feel competent. He needed the room to respect him so he could feel real. So when the answer becomes no, he does not just lose an opportunity. He loses the reflection he was using as identity. That is why he panics. He replays the conversation. He studies the tone. He searches for hidden meanings. He asks what he did wrong, but not because he truly wants truth. He wants the pain removed. He wants a version of reality where he does not have to become stronger. He wants clarity, but only if clarity comes with emotional anesthesia. Machiavelli would have no patience for this illusion. He did not write for men who needed comfort. He wrote for rulers, for men surrounded by betrayal, ambition, unstable loyalty, shifting fortune, public judgment, and enemies who knew how to smile. His world was not soft. It did not reward good intentions simply because they were good. It rewarded timing, discipline, perception, force of character, and the ability to act when others were paralyzed by emotion. This is why Machiavelli remains dangerous. Not because he teaches evil, but because he removes fantasy. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand." That sentence explains half of your pain. You thought they would see your heart. They saw your signals. You thought they would understand your potential. They saw your current evidence. You thought your intention would be enough. They measured your visible value. And here is the brutal part. At the first moment of judgment, your hidden value does not protect you. If your discipline is hidden, it does not influence perception. If your ambition is hidden, it does not influence opportunity. If your intelligence is hidden behind hesitation, confusion, neediness, or weak presentation, it does not command the room. The world does not live inside your private self-image. The world sees patterns. It sees posture. It sees consistency. It sees proof. It sees whether you collapse when you are denied. This does not mean you become fake. It means you make your value visible. If you possess discipline, let it appear in your body, your schedule, your work, and your consistency. If you possess intelligence, let it appear in your decisions. If you possess ambition, let it appear in results. If you possess strength, let it appear in restraint. Most men hate this because they want to be discovered. They want someone to look past the disorder, past the inconsistency, past the emotional hunger, past the weak evidence, and somehow recognize the king inside them. But the world does not reward hidden kings, it rewards visible force. Machiavelli also wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." That is not a complaint, that is a law. If the world sees what appears first, then appearance is not shallow. Appearance is the first battlefield, not appearance as decoration. Appearance as disciplined reality made visible. Your body speaks before your philosophy. Your tone speaks before your explanation. Your consistency speaks before your promise. Your reputation arrives before your intention. So when rejection comes, the strategic question is not, "Why did they not understand me?" The strategic question is, "What did my appearance fail to command?" That question is not comfortable. It cuts through pride. But useful truth is more valuable than comforting lies. If you were rejected in business, what did the market see? Did it see skill, proof, precision, urgency, trust, and a clear offer? Or did it see hope dressed as a pitch? If you were rejected by someone you wanted, what did they see? Did they see strength, direction, restraint, and gravity? Or did they see need, emotional hunger, and a man waiting to be chosen? If you were rejected by a group, an audience, a company, a client, or a gatekeeper, what did they see? Not what you believe you are, not what you tell yourself at night. What did they see? Because in the world of power, the unseen does not govern outcomes. The visible does. This is the first move. Audit the rejection. Do not dramatize it. Do not turn it into a sacred injury. Do not make yourself the tragic hero of the story. Write it down without theater. They declined. They ignored. They chose someone else. They withdrew. They laughed. They underestimated. They did not respond. They closed the door. Then ask the questions that actually matter. What did this reveal about my current position? What did they see? What did they not see? What weakness did I expose? What expectation did I secretly depend on? What proof was missing? What leverage was absent? What part of me was still waiting for permission? And then ask the question that separates the man from the boy. What must now be built? That question is the blade. A weak man asks, "How do I make them choose me?" A strategic man asks, "How do I become a man whose value does not collapse when he is not chosen?" This is the beginning of power. You do not become powerful by pretending rejection does not hurt. That is childish. A serious man does not deny pain. He commands it. There is a difference. Pain is real. Humiliation is real. Anger is real. The tightness in the chest is real. The desire to prove them wrong is real. But none of these things are power by themselves. Emotion without direction is only noise inside the nervous system. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "Discipline in war counts more than fury." That applies directly to the inner war after rejection. Fury may wake you up, but discipline decides whether that energy becomes construction or destruction. A weak man feels pain and searches for sedation. He scrolls, he drinks, he complains, he checks messages. He looks for sympathy. He tells the story again and again, each time making himself more wounded, more justified, and less capable. A dangerous man does something colder. He assigns the pain a job. Humiliation goes into training. Anger goes into output. Regret goes into output. Regret goes into study. loneliness goes into skill. This is the second move. Convert the pain, not tomorrow, not when you feel better, not when the emotional weather becomes calm. Immediately, because pain that sits too long begins to name you. You become the man who was left, the man who was ignored, the man who was not chosen, the man who still thinks about it months later while pretending he has moved on. That is how pain becomes a prison. But if you move quickly, pain becomes fuel. The first 24 hours after rejection are critical. Do not beg, do not explain, do not ask for one final conversation. Do not perform your pain online. Do not post quotes aimed at someone specific. Do not try to make them see what they failed to value. Audit, convert, build. If you think of them, work. If you feel humiliated, train. If you feel anger, build. If you feel regret, study. If you feel the urge to explain yourself, create evidence instead. One wound, one output, every time. This is how you teach the nervous system that pain is not a command to collapse. Pain is a command to move. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half." Fortune is timing, loss, betrayal, rejection, insult, silence, disorder, crisis, and the decisions of other people. You do not control all of it, but you control the answer. Rejection belongs to fortune. Your response belongs to virtue. And virtue does not mean being nice. It means capacity, boldness, adaptability, force of character, the ability to impose form on chaos, the ability to act when conditions are not favorable. Most men are slaves to favorable conditions. They train when they feel confident. They work when they feel inspired. They commit when someone believes in them. They move when the weather inside them is calm. Then rejection comes, and they stop. They say they need time. They say they need healing. They say they need clarity. No. They need command. A man who waits to feel whole before he acts will remain governed by every wound he receives. The Machiavellian man acts while wounded. Not recklessly, not emotionally, precisely. He knows fortune will strike. He expects men to misjudge. He expects gratitude to fade. He expects desire to shift. He expects appearances to dominate. He expects rejection to come. So when it arrives, he does not treat it as a cosmic injustice. He treats it as weather. The storm has arrived. Now steer. That is the difference between the man who collapses and the man who becomes dangerous. The collapsing man asks reality to be gentler. The dangerous man becomes harder to break. And this hardness does not come from cruelty. It comes from discipline, perception, and the refusal to let another person's judgment become the architecture of his identity. Rejection is allowed to hurt you. It is not allowed to govern you. That is the law. A man who understands this stops chasing emotional repair and starts building evidence. Because evidence is what changes perception. Evidence is what strengthens reputation. Evidence is what turns private pain into visible power. Do not tell people you are changing. Change until it is visible. Do not announce your comeback. Return with proof. Do not ask the world to believe in your hidden value. Make your value difficult to deny. This is where the rejected man begins to separate from the ordinary man. The ordinary man wants to be understood. The strategic man wants to become undeniable. And these are not the same ambition. The man who wants to be understood is still dependent on the mercy of the observer. He needs someone to listen patiently, to interpret generously, to see past his weakness, to believe in his potential before his results exist. That position makes him emotional. It makes him explain too much. It makes him available to people who have already decided his price. The man who becomes undeniable does not ask for generous interpretation. He changes the evidence. This is the third move. Build proof. Proof is not a speech. Proof is not a promise. Proof is not a dramatic post written at midnight. Proof is what remains visible after your emotion has passed. Your body, your work, your skill, your income, your discipline, your network, your reputation, your calm under pressure, your ability to keep moving when approval disappears. Machiavelli wrote, "The common people are always taken by appearances and by the event." That means people judge what appears and what happens. They are not wrong to do this. They are limited by what they can see. If what they see is neediness, disorder, inconsistency, and unproven ambition, they will respond accordingly. If what they see is direction, restraint, competence, and results, they will respond differently. Resentment does not change the rules. A ruler studies the rules. A child complains about them. If appearance governs first judgment, then you must govern appearance, not with fake decoration, but with disciplined reality made visible. Your body must show command. Your speech must show restraint. Your work must show seriousness. Your habits must show structure. Your reputation must make rejection more difficult for the next person, the next client, the next audience, the next gatekeeper, the next opportunity. This is not vanity. This is warfare of perception. And perception begins before you speak. A man who looks disordered must work twice as hard to be believed. A man who speaks too much signals that he has not learned control. A man who seeks pity teaches others that he can be emotionally managed. A man who keeps explaining himself after rejection trains the world to see him as negotiable. You must stop being negotiable. When rejection comes, your first victory is silence. Not weak silence, not passive silence, strategic silence. The silence of a man who refuses to conduct a trial inside someone else's court. They made their decision. Let them keep it. You have work to do. This is where the rejected man enters the silent evidence phase. No public drama, no indirect messages, no emotional performance, no theatrical quotes posted for someone specific to see, no begging disguised as honesty, no final paragraph sent at midnight, no explaining your pain to people who benefit from seeing you wounded. Withdraw the performance, increase the production. Machiavelli understood the value of concealment. In The Art of War, he wrote, "No proceeding is better than that which you have concealed from the enemy until the time you have executed it." Apply this carefully. This does not mean you treat ordinary people as enemies. It means you protect unfinished strength from unnecessary eyes. Most men ruin transformation by announcing it too early. They say they are changing, and the attention gives them the reward before the work has created the result. They receive a small amount of validation, and the pressure leaves their body. They confuse declaration with discipline. Do not declare, build. Let silence become pressure. Let pressure become routine. Let routine become evidence. Let evidence become reputation. Let reputation become leverage. That is the chain. For the next 30 days after rejection, create a personal law. The pain is not allowed to speak unless it produces. If you feel the need to check their profile, train. If you feel the need to send a message, write down the weakness that message is trying to hide. If you feel the need to tell people your side, improve the area where your evidence was weak. If you feel the need to fantasize about revenge, return to the work that will make revenge irrelevant. One wound, one output. That is the law. Because ruthlessness does not mean cruelty. It does not mean hatred. It does not mean punishing everyone who failed to recognize you. That is not power. That is wounded vanity wearing armor. Ruthlessness means you no longer allow emotion to negotiate against your future. You do not feel like training. You train. You do not feel like working. You work. You do not feel like staying silent. You stay silent. You do not feel like accepting reality. You accept it because reality must be accepted before it can be used. A man who refuses reality remains trapped beneath it. A man who accepts reality can begin to move pieces. This is why rejection can become one of the most useful events in a man's life. Not because it is pleasant, not because it is fair, not because it proves you are special. It becomes useful because it removes illusion. Before rejection, you were divided. Part of you hoped. Part of you waited. Part of you shaped yourself around an uncertain verdict. Part of you gave power to a person, an audience, a company, a client, a woman, a circle, or a gatekeeper that had not earned the right to define you. Then rejection came. Painful, yes, but also clarifying. The false option is gone. The fantasy is gone. The negotiation is over. Now your energy can return to you. Machiavelli wrote, "To know how to recognize an opportunity in war and take it benefits you more than anything else." Rejection is not only a wound, it is an opening. It creates an opportunity to reclaim scattered energy and concentrate it in one direction. The ordinary man grieves the door. The strategic man studies the wall. If the door closed, where is the weakness in the structure? Where is the opening? What path is now free, because you no longer have to waste energy seeking approval from that direction? You were rejected by a client. Good. Refine the offer until the next client feels the cost of saying no. You were rejected by someone you wanted. Good. Confront the need inside you that made their approval feel like oxygen. You were rejected by a group. Good. Build so much visible value that the next room understands the price of exclusion. You were rejected by the market. Good. Stop romanticizing your product and study what people actually respond to. You were rejected by an opportunity. Good. Become too capable to depend on one gate. The point is not to pretend every rejection is secretly beautiful. That is self-help softness. The point is to extract usefulness from what cannot be changed. Machiavelli wrote in Discourses on Livy, "Men never do good unless necessity drives them to it." Necessity is brutal because it removes negotiation. It tells a man that if he does not adapt, he will decay. Rejection creates necessity. It tells you that your current form is not enough for the world you claim to want, not your human worth, your current form. That distinction matters. As a man, you may possess dignity. But in the arena of power, dignity without force is ignored. Potential without proof is discounted. Desire without discipline is noise. Pain without production becomes decay. So do not ask rejection to be gentle. Use its pressure to become necessary. Necessary through skill. Necessary through competence. Necessary through reputation. Necessary through consistency. Necessary through the kind of presence that does not beg to be included because it has become valuable enough to attract terms. And this is where many men lose the plot. They become obsessed with revenge. Revenge feels powerful because it creates a fantasy of reversal. You imagine them watching you win. You imagine their regret. You imagine their apology. You imagine the day they realize what they lost. Use that fire if you must, but do not worship it. A man who lives to make someone regret rejecting him is still orbiting the person who rejected him. They remain the hidden center. That is not freedom. That is slavery with a stronger posture. Machiavelli understood the danger of hatred. In The Prince, he warned that a prince must avoid being hated. He wrote, "A prince must make himself feared in such a way that if he does not gain love, he avoids hatred." The lesson is restraint. Power must not become uncontrolled resentment. Strength must not become reckless hostility. A serious man does not let rejection turn him into a petty tyrant. Do not become cruel. Become controlled. Do not become bitter. Become difficult to manipulate. Do not seek to wound. Become unavailable to those who only value you after proof appears. Do not chase revenge. Build consequence through elevation. The cleanest revenge is not seeing them suffer. The cleanest revenge is reaching a level where their judgment no longer has emotional jurisdiction over you. At first, rejection drives you. Then, discipline replaces rejection. At first, you remember the insult. Then the work becomes larger than the insult. At first, you want them to see. Then you become too focused to care who is watching. That is the final transformation. The weak man wants the person who rejected him to return and confirm his value. The dangerous man wants the rejection to become irrelevant. There is a childish victory and there is a sovereign victory. The childish victory says, "They regret losing me." The sovereign victory says, "Their opinion no longer organizes my identity." That is the higher court. This is the point where a man becomes hard to destroy, not because he feels nothing, but because he no longer lets feeling interrupt construction. He can receive humiliation and turn it into refinement. He can receive silence and turn it into focus. He can receive dismissal and turn it into proof. He can receive loss and turn it into leverage. He has learned the deeper law. Rejection is not the enemy. Unconverted rejection is the enemy. Pain that remains pain becomes poison. Pain that enters discipline becomes force. This is why the deeper work matters. The world will keep testing your need for approval. It will keep offering you situations where you can beg, explain, react, or build. If you want the uncensored breakdowns on power, masculine self-command, reputation, and the laws beneath social behavior, join the Patreon. That is where we go deeper into the material built for men who are no longer interested in being emotionally managed by the opinions of others. Now understand the full Machiavellian frame. Men are fickle. Do not be surprised. Appearance matters. Govern it. Fortune wounds, answer with virtue, love shifts, build respect, reputation precedes explanation, strengthen it, necessity creates discipline, use it, conceal unfinished strength, reveal proof, train courage, do not wait to feel brave, recognize opportunity inside the wound, take it, and above all, stop asking the world to be fair before you become effective. Most men fail not because they lack ability, but because they misunderstand reality. They think rejection is a verdict on their soul. It is not. It is a verdict on their current presentation, current leverage, current proof, current timing, or current usefulness in the eyes of another person or system. Sometimes that verdict is wrong. Sometimes it is right. Either way, your task is the same. Change the evidence. If they rejected you because they could not see your value, make your value visible. If they rejected you because your value was not high enough, raise it. If they rejected you because you were needy, remove the dependency. If they rejected you because your reputation was weak, build one that travels ahead of you. If they rejected you because you lacked proof, produce proof. If they rejected you because they had better options, become a better option in the arena that matters, not for them, for power. Because the moment you build only to be seen by the people who hurt you, you remain emotionally provincial. Your world stays small. Your throne is still inside their opinion. Build beyond them. Let rejection begin the construction, but never let it remain the architect. You are the architect. That means you do not waste the wound. You do not romanticize it. You do not perform it. You do not let it become an excuse. You do not let it become your personality. You do not carry it like a sacred injury. You melt it down. You turn it into schedule. You turn it into training. You turn it into competence. You turn it into silence. You turn it into visible proof. You turn it into a colder eye for human nature. You turn it into the ability to see what others are too emotional to see. This is why Machiavelli remains dangerous. He gives no shelter to fantasy. He does not tell you that good intentions will be enough. He does not tell you that fairness will arrive on time. He does not tell you that people will value you before you create evidence. He does not tell you that love will remain stable simply because you feel deeply. He tells you to understand men. He tells you to understand fortune. He tells you to understand appearance. He tells you to understand power. And once you understand these things, you cannot return to innocence. You will no longer see rejection as merely emotional. You will see the machinery beneath it. Interest, perception, status, utility, timing, fear, desire, advantage, options. And once you see the machinery, you can stop worshipping the wound. You can begin moving the levers. So remember this: weak men get sad when rejected. Dangerous men get organized. But the rarest men get organized. They turn rejection into evidence. They turn evidence into reputation. They turn reputation into leverage. They turn leverage into freedom. And once a man has freedom, he no longer begs to be chosen by those who could only recognize value after it became obvious. He has outgrown the court that judged him. He has become the evidence. He has become the force. He has become the man rejection was supposed to destroy, but instead was forced to create.